I'm Rachel Horgan. Join me each episode as I sit down with a guest co-host covering the latest business stories in the Seattle area. We'll read the news so you don't have to. This is The Weekly. Hey guys, how's everyone doing? I'll go first. I'm bad. So this week I had a friend that was scheduled to be on a CEO, and we were talking this week, and we are just like, how could we possibly talk about business news when, our mind is so focused on the election and the aftermath of that? So we agreed to reschedule her. And I was either going to skip it or do a solo. And I was like, I don't feel like that's a good idea for me to just monologue about my thoughts. And I had a friend who was like, yeah, I had therapy after the election and it really helped. And I was like, oh man, that's a great idea. I wish I don't have a therapist right now. I'm trying to figure out my healthcare. I was like, how do I get a therapy appointment for free? But I just thought therapy would be good for me after this, and I thought maybe the listeners would appreciate some therapy as well. So joining me this week is Alex Iani, a therapist at King County Sexual Assault Resource Center. Hello.
Hello.
So a little bit about Alex. Prior to this role at King County Sexual Assault Resource Center, she was a substance use and mental health therapist for Youth Eastside Services. And fun fact, was my roommate for 3.5 years. So you've heard a lot of my grievances. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Share a little bit more, if you could, about what you do over at your current role, how that works.
I work for an organization that works with people who've experienced sexual violence. And majority of our organization is legal advocates who support individuals and families going through the court system. And then we also offer therapy, too, if people are interested in that.
Okay. You're doing good work. So today, if you can't tell, we're going to do a little bit of a special episode. I'm going to tell you there is one business news story that I need to update everyone on because it's my duty to keep you informed. And then we're going to talk a little bit about just the mental health industry as a whole and kind of where that's been going the past few years, because this is a business podcast after all. But the majority of today's episode, I really want to talk about tools and advice on handling the emotional side of the election. And that can be whether we're feeling grief or dealing with our family or just we don't know what we're feeling. I just thought it would be kind of a different episode. So if this isn't for you, if you're not wanting this, then no worries. We'll check back next time. The other thing I'd say is if you are disagreeing with some of the stuff we're saying, I'm going to be pretty honest about my emotions on this one. But if you were pretty happy with the election results, I encourage you to still listen to this episode because if we're going to unite, I think it's important to kind of understand how some people that disagree with you are really feeling. And it can maybe help if I'm sure you have people in your life that are sad too, and maybe you can help be a little empathetic towards what they're going through. So, you ready to talk about everything?
I'm ready.
Okay, let's get the news story out of the way. I just want to let everybody know that Boeing strike that I've been talking about nonstop, it did finally end. So nearly 60% of the workers voted yes. If you recall, they were asking for a 40% wage increase over the 4 years, and Boeing said, okay, we'll do 30, okay, we'll do 35. They landed at 38% wage increase, as well as an 8% 401k match and a bonus, but no pensions, which was a big thing that the workers wanted. So that's that. Now you're in the know. So let's talk about the business of therapy. How have you seen it change over the years? I think that everyone's gotten a lot more accepting with it. I would imagine you're seeing a lot more people sign up for it. Is that true? Have you seen that?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, I work for an organization, so I'm not in the private sector. So all of my knowledge comes from friends, colleagues, my own therapist who has been in the private sector. But it does seem like probably, I would say, over the past decade or less, there's been a significant increase in people seeking out therapy privately, but also too within like my organization or the previous organizations that I've worked in. When I worked for Youth Eastside Services, my first position there was to be in the Bellevue Public Schools. My position existed because there was a strong desire for mental health to come into the schools. So yes, and it also just kind of in my own search of looking for private practitioners on like Psychology Today or through my insurance, it seems like a lot of private practitioners are pretty full.
That's what I gather, because I think, 2 years ago, I reached out to like 5, and I think 1 got back to me, and we had this call, and she's like, well, yeah, I'd love to work with you if you want to work with me. And I wanted to be like, well, no one else, job's yours, because no one else responded. But yeah, because I imagine they're just so overloaded. This is why, if you recall, Alex, when we first lived together, I, always the entrepreneur, I was saying, why don't we start an underground therapy ring where I text friends of mine that you don't know, and then they come over to our house for therapy, and then they just Venmo you, and I don't see the problem. And you're like, well, I could lose my license. And I was like, well, every new business has a risk, why don't we just do it? But alas, you did not take me up on that. But I think there's such a demand for therapy. So speaking of, let's get into it. I will have to say, everyone, this is the least prepared I've been for an episode, because I texted you this morning and I was like, I have an idea. Let's have therapy. But I want to start with kind of what our experiences were with the election, because we weren't together and I haven't talked to you since. And then we'll kind of talk about our emotions on it. So where were you?
I was in my living room. I had gone to yoga beforehand. But yes, I remember checking my phone maybe like 6:30 or 7, and Trump was like already ahead. And it just brought me right back to 2016 when he was also ahead pretty early on. And I just kind of like, I guess, accepted it there that there's just kind of, it would be really, really hard for there to be a different outcome.
I will say that I was with some friends at Wild Rose in Capitol Hill watching, and the energy there was, everyone was like hesitant. Like she'd win a state and like one person would clap because we're all like, it's too soon to like get excited about anything. And then a lot of us went home and we saw it kind of turning. So let's talk about the next day. So 2016, I sobbed at night, sobbed in the morning, called out of work, cried all day. This year, numb, couldn't cry. And then what's also wild is that we go back to work, and as everyone knows, I'm an event planner. We have this huge conference, and I had a meeting in the morning about like where the VIPs are going to have breakfast. And I just was like, I don't care. At a dumpster. I don't care. I don't fucking care. Like I can't think about anything other than what's going on in my head. So do you have any advice for people that are trying to go to work and also grieving, or even if you have anything going on in your life, but you're trying to not think about this election? Do you have any advice?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Yeah. And I guess like before I get started, I just want to like identify that I am like a cisgender, female, straight, white. So I have a lot of privileges. And so the results of the election are going to hit me much differently than other people. And then also I think too, just us being here in Washington, in Western Washington, in Seattle, we also are all in a more like privileged place than other parts of the country. There's a lot more protections. There's a lot more just openness. And yeah, and I'm also very ignorant because I can't speak about what people's experiences are like in like, the South or the East Coast or the Midwest, middle of the country.
But for me specifically, how can I focus on work?
Rachel. Always trying to get the free therapy.
That's right.
I would just really want to know, like, what is it? And I know you spoke about this earlier before we started, but like, what is it that's getting in the way of being able to do your work? I mean, because that's such a general, experience, thing to generalize of like, I can't get to work because of the results of the election. But why is it that you can't get to work?
I think it's two major things. And I just also want to say that I'm in the messy middle right now. Like, I think I'm going to share how I'm feeling right now, but it's easy to talk back and reflect back on our experiences. But currently right now, I'm going to do the best I can to articulate this. I think the two things that are standing out to me is one, like, nothing matters. Like, this feels very meaningless. Like, my job feels silly to be planning a conference, which bigger picture, I don't feel that. I do think bringing people together is really important. But, in those moments, I'm just like catastrophizing maybe, like the world's ending, everyone hates women, and I'm like planning a breakfast. You know what I mean? So I think there's this feeling of what I'm doing doesn't matter a little bit. And then I think the other one is that a big part of my outlook on life is that I truly believe that people are good at their core. And even though they may do really bad things, I think there's reasons behind that. I think that their people are driven by different things. So it's just been a core belief of mine. And in 2016, I understood, okay, like they're not bad people. They just care about different things. Like I had to really kind of wrap my head and try to understand half the population. And I think this time around, it really shook that core belief that people are good. And obviously, I know people in my life that voted for Trump, and I know that they're not bad people. And I think that's where I get stuck, is like, it seems like you're doing something that's against my morals and character, but I know that you're a good person. But now I'm like, are you? I think that's why this one felt different in 2016.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think that's a great place to start, of like reflecting on the people who voted for Trump or Trump supporters and whatnot. And especially people that that's great. That's who you get to go off of.
Mm-hmm.
And that's who you get to reflect upon, is like, I know this person, and this person does, like, this person is a good person for X, Y, and Z reasons. And unfortunately, they voted for someone who actually kind of goes against a lot of like things that they stand for. So that's confusing to me.
Mm-hmm.
And again, depending on your relationship with that person who voted for Trump, maybe it's something that you could explore with them, of like, wow, like, I don't know, give me a family member.
I can't share too many details.
Okay, so wow, Grandma, you voted for Trump, and you're a woman, and you're so progressive in all these different types of ways, but then he stands for this or he stands for that. Like, how can you tell me a little bit more about that? I guess it's more just being curious.
Mm-hmm.
And then what you're saying about like the catastrophizing, that is not helpful. That is,
Shit.
I mean, we're all guilty of it. We all do it. But that is one of the like, unhelpful, unkind thinking traps that we can get into. And so when that is happening, it's really important to like identify, like, I'm doing this right now. I'm starting to, another unhelpful, unkind thinking trap is like predicting the future.
Mm.
And again, we all do it, and there's no like shame to it, but just noticing when that's happening and reminding ourselves, okay, that I'm doing this right now, and it's taking me away from like the present. And that's not really helpful.
Yeah. And I think I've sort of kind of alluded to this, but what I struggle with people in my life is that we're not debating politics. To me, I feel like we're debating morals and character. And I think politics, for example, there's a couple of bills on the Seattle ballot that I know I voted differently than my friends, probably differently than you. Happy to debate that, happy to disagree about that. And I think that's where some people get mixed up, is that like, well, why can't you just agree to disagree with Grandma, And I think that's where a lot of people are stuck. And so I like that advice of trying to understand and not putting them in this bucket of like, you voted for him, you have no morals, which I'm having a hard time with, but yes. One thing you told me years ago when we lived together.
Oh God.
The one free therapy advice you gave me was when I was struggling to focus on work because of I don't know what. And you said to set aside time for that. Mm. So we were like, okay, tell yourself, so at 5:30 or 7 o'clock or whatever it is time that you'll be by yourself, or you'll be able to think about that. Whenever it starts to come up at work, just be like, nope, I'm thinking about that at 5 and kind of scheduling it. Mm-hmm. Would you stand by that advice?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Having like a scheduled worried time is really, really important. It's so good for your brain too. It's like a mental exercise. And that can apply to really a lot of different things. But yeah, if you can, it's all about just having like the awareness of, I'm thinking about this thing that's like unhelpful right now, and it's unhelpful or it's unkind because it's getting in the way of like my present moment, which is so precious. So having a designated time to give yourself to be thinking about maybe these unhelpful, unkind thoughts is really good. And it teaches your brain that you have some agency, some control over it. And then also when you do have this designated time to worry, catastrophize, fortune tell, make sure that it's contained. So it's like, I'm going to do this for 10 minutes or 15 minutes. I'm going to set a timer to do that. And then afterwards, I'm going to make sure that I call a friend, or I go for a walk, or I make something really good to eat, or watch one of my, favorite shows or cat videos or whatever.
Yeah. So speaking of that, I was telling you, like, And I've been telling my friends, like, I don't know what to do with myself. Like, I feel like I'm having a really hard time self-regulating. And I typically feel like I'm pretty good about that. Like, I know that I need to go for a walk, or I know I need to be with community, or my shows, like things that you've mentioned. And I feel like I've tried drinking. I've tried, working out. I've tried all these things, and like nothing is making me feel better in these 2 days. We're recording this on Thursday. Help me.
Will cost you, Rachel.
Oh, no.
No. Yeah. So again, it's having the awareness that this is going on. And I think it really, really is helpful to first connect to like what's going on in my body. So I think, a good time to check in around like what's going on in my body could be something that you set aside every single morning. So maybe that means you have to like wake up 5 minutes earlier or whatnot, but it can be something that you do in bed, and you really just check in with yourself and kind of do like a mental body scan of like what's going on in my body. Our body gives us so much information, whether it's like, tension or upset stomach or increased body temperature, sweating, dry mouth, I don't know, just a bunch of different things. So just to like check in and see what's going on. So maybe it's like, oh, my stomach's like a little uncomfortable, or I'm noticing that like I'm really like tensing my fists a lot.
Yeah,
that just goes to show that your like central nervous system is just a little bit elevated, a little bit off, and so you need to do something to regulate it. And so what that could be is a grounding practice. It could be a guided breathing practice, a guided visualization. A lot of these things can be found on YouTube. That's what I do, that I refer my clients to. You can just like type in like 5-minute body scan or 5-minute guided visualization, like on the beach or a forest or wherever you want to go. Just a way of tapping back into your body. Mm-hmm. And you got to make a choice. So you got to make a choice of like, am I going to kind of go the direction of this like doom dialogue, or am I going to no? Okay, well that's your choice. Or am I going to understand, appreciate that I'm like a little dysregulated or a lot dysregulated. Body's having a response to it, and I need to do something. I do have to do something to respond to this.
I think that's the thing, is I don't have anything to hold on to. Like, I don't, maybe in 2016 I was like, okay, it's only 4 years and then we'll never have to see him ever again. Or whatever it is, like we have the Women's March, we can fight back. And I think that I got to this place of despair of like, I don't have anything to like hold on to. At one point for about 13 minutes, I was like, should I get into politics? Will that make me feel less helpless? And then like, should I just yell at every person in my life and honk my horn? I don't know. So, I guess my point is like, I'm trying to find something that's going to give me hope and something to hold on to and some positivity to stop the doom.
Yeah, but you do have a lot of positive things in your life. You have this podcast, you have your job, you have your friends, you have Yonder Cider. You live in like a beautiful part of the country. There's a lot. I mean, there's just, you're able-bodied. There's like a lot to be grateful for. So it is really just kind of like peeling back the layers of us and really being like grateful. And that sounds like super corny and probably unhelpful.
But there's a lot. I mean, let me tell you about the studies. There's a lot of studies that say how impactful journaling about how grateful you are about like 5 things in the morning or 3 things in the morning and 3 things at night. And it really changes things. I did this one. Remember when I was doing Calling in the One, that book? Mm-hmm. So one of the assignments that day was to write like a full 2 pages of everything you're grateful, like just massive amounts of things you're grateful for. And it changed the way I thought, because I don't know if you remember, but I spilled the Brita all over the kitchen floor. And usually I'd be like, dang it. And I had to be like, I'm grateful that this allows me to clean the floor today. So I do think it can kind of change your mindset. So that's a really good one. What other advice do you have on people that are struggling right now? Yeah,
this idea of what can I be hopeful for? And it also is nice. It's a nice time to maybe take like inventory of what are the things that I have control over in my life, and what are the things that you don't need to take inventory of what are the things that I don't have control over because
I'm well aware of those ones.
Yes. Your automatic brain intrusion will just pop right in there. But really making maybe a solid list of like, 3 to 5 things that I have, what do I have control over? And that's what you got to focus on. So when you are having those intrusive doom thoughts, it's like, okay, again, so I'm noticing I'm having these thoughts. Am I going to give into these thoughts knowing that it's going to be really unhelpful and make me feel awful and just lose track of the day, the week, the month, the year, whatever? Mm-hmm. Or can I just like pause, do a reset, whether again, it's like a breathing practice, a guided body scan, visualization, and then can I go and focus on those things that I do have control over? So these are, just little bits that are going to, of course, solve what's happening, but at least they have a positive impact on you today in that moment.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to end, unless you have something else you want to say.
Well, the only other thing that I would say is like, I think it's absolutely okay. And we have to have, be with our communities and have space where we can just vent and cry and yell, and say the worst things in the world. We need to have that. That's like super, super important. Again, that needs to be contained. Kind of like, we got to contain the doom dialogue. Yeah. So there's that. And then there's, even from the last time Trump won, there was actually a lot of I know a lot of shit came out of it, but there was also a lot of beauty that came out of it, like the Women's March, which was really, really cool. And then I know kind of for different reasons, but it still happened during his presidency, like Black Lives Matter March. And it was just, there is a lot of hope and positivity that can come out during this time. And people can be like, misery loves the same company. But I do think that there's opportunity for people to come together. And then also what you were saying of like planning these conferences for all of these people, that's also a really nice, it's like, it shouldn't be scary to be in rooms with people who might have differing opinions. It's like, this is actually could be an opportunity for people to like to grow together and learn from each other.
I do think that we all don't want to be divisive. Like I do think that people that voted for Trump don't want to continue to be divisive. I can't say for all of them, but I think we're starting to get aligned in that. We're starting to see that it's really not helpful. So maybe that's a positive that will come out of it.
Yeah. And I do come from like a really privileged place. And I don't want to like downplay at all. I don't want to minimize at all that it is really, really scary what, certain Trump supporters are, say or believe or whatnot. And where, how can I join some community that's a like of mine? I guess my number one thing is do not go through this post-election period on your own. You got to find someone, whether it's in person or online. You got to find a community that you can be with, that you can feel like you can speak freely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm not just saying this, but I do actually feel better after talking to you. So thank you. I appreciate it. I hope you all found this helpful. And for reals, I do think I'm going to take a break next week just because, like I mentioned, I'm flying to Texas for this conference. So I won't be able to record on that Thursday because I'll be operating that event. But yeah, unless I come up with some crazy idea, I probably will skip a week. Anyway, hope this was helpful. And yeah, thanks, Alex. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Rachel.
This has been The Weekly with production assistance from Nick Patry. If you liked what you heard, rate us and write a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. We love listener feedback, so if you have any story suggestions, comments, or complaints, email us at info@theweeklyseattle.com. Make sure to check back next Sunday for the latest local business news. We'll see you next time.